welcome to the Filmcast review of Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. I'm going to read the plot summary from IMDb. Axel Foley returns to Beverly Hills after his daughter's life is threatened. End quote. So before we get to our review, let's just talk briefly about the title. I got to say, I think Axel F, a little bit awkward as a title. What do you guys think?
Sure. Yeah.
Axel F?
Yeah.
As if we should care, I guess, or at least,
Well,
I don't know.
It's just why Axel F? Why Axel?
The name of the song.
But yeah, but
Is it, Jeff? What song?
But still.
The one that goes.
Anyway,
it's a weird title. I agree.
It's like they've named all the they named all the other movies after with like numbers, right? Beverly Hills Cop 1, 2, and 3. Maybe they just wanted you not to remember.
They didn't want you to remember 3.
Yeah,
that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Also, I think the title is maybe a little self-indulgent, maybe a little like pointing to like what doesn't work about this movie at times too. Yeah.
I think this is supposed to be the Rocky Balboa.
Yeah. Where you had Rocky, we had Rocky 1 through 5, I want to say, right? And then the 6th one was Rocky Balboa.
Right.
So this is Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. It's like, hey, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different than the last few stories that we did.
Yeah.
Although, is the question. Jeff Canada, what did you think about Beverly Hills Cop Axel F?
Well, Dave, I guess you could say what I thought about Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. Rolls off the tongue.
Rolls
is
trippingly.
Best summed up in the form of a limerick. The first film's plot beats retold. Bronson Pinchot and Judge Reinhold. I still like Murphy's japes, but just can't escape what happens when we all get old.
Oh,
beautiful limerick, Jeff. That's one of your best ones, in my opinion. Also, jape, a word that needs to be used more.
Pretty good
in everyday English language, in my opinion.
If you read fantasy novels, you'll see that word a lot.
I love jape. I
love
a good
100 years old. Yeah,
I love a good jape. Not only the concept of a jape, but also the usage of that word.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Beverly Hills Cop Axel F is the Force Awakens of Beverly Hills Cop movies.
But not as good.
Well, I
know you don't like The Force Awakens, Jeff, but we could argue like the elements here. But I agree. I do agree with that.
The Force Awakens. My biggest problem with The Force Awakens is that it just is plodding its way through the exact same beats as the movie that it so desperately wants to be. And it's, I think, actually a double-edged sword that we just so recently revisited the first Beverly Hills Cop in our After Dark, because I couldn't help but see, my goodness, did somebody sit down and just go, okay, what happens in scene 1? Okay, big action sequence. Got it. In a car. Okay. Smashing lots of other cars. Got it. Done. Just transpose that right here. Right. Okay, then what happens next? Well, he's in Detroit, angers his superior officer. Okay, transpose that. It's just it really does feel in the same way that The Force Awakens for me is so tired and uninspired. This feels like it's a slavish recreation of the thing we love, except in this case, it's just with old people. And I've been going through this phenomenon that is a fairly recent one of the Lego sequel, right?
Yes.
And they almost never work for me. I mean, I think Top Gun Maverick, the glaring exception, but almost never do they work. And this movie, as I sat there watching it, forced me to reflect on this, because I love Eddie Murphy. When I was a kid, it's hard to overstate how big a deal Eddie Murphy was. And as a kid, he was in this place of, you're not really allowed to experience his stuff. Like, I would go to sleepover parties and we would sneak on Delirious and Raw. And, I remember my friend had a VHS copy of a Best of Eddie Murphy Saturday Night Live, which was just like all of his best sketches back to back. And we would watch it over and over and over, and all the Buckwheat sketches and all of the James Brown's Too Hot in the Hot Tub. It's hot in the hot tub, and all of his Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood sketches. Like, just Eddie Murphy was the man and the coolest cat in existence. And as a kid, you just like, oh, he's the kind of the forbidden fruit too, right? Because he was so R-rated, and Beverly Hills Cop was like a big deal, and he was like the coolest guy. And I still think he's got it in a lot of ways. I still think he's very talented.
Yeah.
And I loved like the first, I don't know, third of this movie did feel like, as much of a retread as it is of that first movie, which it absolutely is, I did love like being back with Axel Foley and hanging out with his kind of brand of bullshittery. You know, his bullshit artist superpower is fun, and Eddie Murphy knows how to do it, and he's goofy and brash and brazen in all the most fun ways.
The idea is he can just talk himself into any situation, no matter. He's like chameleon. He can transform himself into whatever is necessary for any given situation.
His force of will, like another person would in another franchise would bust into a room and guns blazing and out action the bad guys.
Yes.
But Axel Foley comes in completely unarmed and still comes out ahead because he's just smarter, quicker. Forces you to deal with him and, you know, just bullshits his way through it, but completely commands the room. And there's a thrill to that. There's an absolute thrill to, you know, bad guys with machine guns, and Axel Foley kicks the door open without any weapon at all. And is just like, hey, you guys, listen to me. That is a fun thing for me. I love that.
Yeah.
And have loved that.
Same.
And you get glimpses of that again in this movie. And it's like, yeah, Eddie Murphy can still turn that charm on. He's still a movie star. He can still do it. Is he carrying a few extra LBs? Are there wrinkles on his, at his crow's feet? Yeah, but you know what? It's still there. He's still got that spark. But the movie decides at a certain point that it's going to make the point that his brand of brazen, cocksure bullshittery is of a bygone era. And it decides that what we're here to do is to highlight the way that things have changed, which I suppose is a take that could be interesting. But for me, what starts to happen in this movie is that every time Eddie Murphy kind of begins one of those fun, cool, character rants that he gets into, it subverts them. It undermines them. He even gives up on one at one point. He's just like, I'm sorry, I'm too tired. I can't do this.
I like that.
Yeah, I did laugh at that. That was funny.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, it steals the joy that I get out of this franchise from the movie. It just is like, oh, that doesn't work anymore. You know, there are characters who literally say to his face, like, oh, you're trying to do this? That doesn't work. I'm sorry. That's from the 80s, buddy. Blah. And it's like, well, then what are we doing here? Because I'm not the new characters. Oh, man, I never thought I would say that Joseph Gordon-Levitt in anything was my least favorite part. I love that guy. But he is bad in this.
Well, except for that singing movie too, right? The guy from Sing Street.
Oh yeah. I didn't like, but that wasn't really him being bad. It
was
the whole movie was
things.
bad.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, good call out, Devindra. That's a good point.
I don't think he's been good in a very long while, unfortunately. I love him. I used to love him.
You're right, man. Boy, I'm having a whole. I'm having the end of Ratatouille right now. But he's not great, and there's a number of like these new characters that are brought in. Like, I think Axel Foley's daughter is fine in this, but like, what are we doing? And it made me think about all the other Lego sequels. You know, the most recent of which that sticks out in my mind is the latest Indiana Jones, and age and the decline of age is very much in the news right now, and I'm very much thinking about it right now. And there is something these movies make you reckon with as you watch them, because you watch a series of characters, not just Eddie Murphy's character, but Judge Reinhold's character and Judge Reinhold's partner's character, whose actor name I can't recall at the moment, but a number of the people, Bronson Pinchot, who shows back up, they're like doing the old shtick. And you go, that's not really how the world works.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're the same person at 60 that you were at 20, it's not really a good thing.
That would be weird. People would find that weird.
Yes. Right? But also that's what we kind of want. It's like, hey, all the actors are still alive. Let's bring them back and have them do the old shtick again. Like, I understand the impulse of a Lego sequel. It's like, hey, we loved that thing. We can bring them back and make them do the thing again.
Everybody loves Bronson Pinchot. Come on.
Bill Murray can play a Ghostbuster again. Don't we all want to see that? Harrison Ford can be Han Solo. Like, all of the things. And I feel like the only times that the outlier is Maverick, Top Gun Maverick, because Tom Cruise is ageless in some bizarre, Faustian deal that he's made. And the only other...
there's actually a take in Top Gun Maverick, too. Like, there's actually like, hey, we're going to update Top Gun using state-of-the-art modern filming techniques. And it's going to be done in a very simple mission style movie, right?
But that movie also is like, hey, why are you still doing the same job that you have? Isn't that weird? Like, the movie is saying, but
right.
And I would say the only other exception for me, maybe you guys can come up with better ones, but as I've been thinking about this, the only other exception for me is Creed. And that is because it goes, Rocky is a side character now.
It really yes-ands the Rocky story, basically.
Yeah. Yes, Rocky is a wizened old, mentor, and that works for me.
Yeah. But also, Stallone was really pissed off with how sidelined he was in that. Like, that's why Creed 2 ended up being a very Stallone pushing feature.
Movie.
Yeah.
Well, but for me, the viewer, as much as I love Eddie Murphy, see those sparks again, I don't think this movie, especially in its second half to second 2/3, it really felt more sad to me than anything else. It was like, it's just like trying real hard to still do the thing, even though we've aged beyond the thing. And I don't know the solution, because it's awesome that we can get the whole gang back together and try to do the thing, but that was a young man's game. That's like, the youth of that is part of the formula. The brazen, cocksure 20-something busting into the room isn't the same when it's a 60-year-old man doing that, or whatever Eddie Murphy is now.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I'm very conflicted about this movie as the whole, because I did get some joy out of it on a certain level, but it ultimately, I came away just feeling sad. Sad for me getting old.
Wow.
It's like, stare at entropy in the face, Jeff.
I mean, I'd love to look this good at 62, Yeah.
So.
Well, I agree.
Yeah.
He looks
no
great.
shade on Eddie Murphy.
He looks great. Yeah.
But you're right. He can't move the way he used to. There's a shot where he has to jump down maybe 5 feet, and there's clearly a cut between him, like, just, I'm going to leap over the stair banister. Cut.
And it's the same thing we just saw with Harrison Ford. Like,
yes.
I hope I'm as amazing at his age as Harrison Ford is in his late 70s. Like, hell yeah. But also, it's not Indiana Jones, like, I don't know.
Devindra
He's
Hardawar.
81 now. Yeah.
Devindra Hardawar, your thoughts on Beverly Hills Cop Axel F?
I will say I wasn't as disappointed as you, Jeff, but I see all your points, and I do get the vibe. Like, I think this is a perfectly competent Beverly Hills Cop movie. This, in fact, it feels like a clone of the first one without like the manic energy of the second one, but it's not as bad as Beverly Hills Cop 3, right? So at least
they even comment on that in the movie, which is so great. Yeah.
At least it like accomplishes that much. I think the thing is, and I don't want to sound like mean here, because I also grew up loving Eddie Murphy, but I listened to an interview, the New York Times interview with him lately, the most recent episode. He does not sound like a guy who's striving, right? Like, he is very comfortable. He says, they're like, so what do you do? What do you do, Eddie Murphy? What kind of art are you into? How are you accessing your mind? He's like, I like TV and reality shows. And like, just not, and he's making fun of himself. He's like, he's also like, I'm sort of tired. Like as a young person, like he was doing so much, was
Right.
so innovative at the time. He's like, yeah, he deserves to rest. I totally get it. But it also feels like he does not have the energy to actually do something new and interesting with these properties. And like we noticed that with Coming to America, which a sequel to a movie I loved, had some really good, had a great director, had some cool new talent in there too. Brought in Wesley Snipes, who's not new talent, but new to the franchise. But it didn't feel like they quite knew what they were doing. And it's interesting to me that this movie is written by the same person who did Bad Boys, the last one. The
Ride
latest
or
Bad
Die?
Boys. Ride or Die, yeah. Or is it For Life?
For
Let me
Life
see
is
here.
the last one.
No, he did Ride or Die.
Ride or Die is the fourth movie.
We had a whole conversation about this, Jeff.
I'm the last person that
Yeah.
should be weighing in on that one. Sorry.
But the person who wrote this movie, Will Beal, wrote Bad Boys, Ride or Die, and we talked about like, it's such an interesting like exploration of those characters and doing something with the franchise. I don't think that's a perfect movie, but at least I could look at that and be like, yeah, I feel good about this. I feel good about where Bad Boys is headed. Whereas I look at this and I'm like, I just watched another Beverly Hills Cop movie, and it's just like the first one, and it just feels so unambitious and kind of sad. Like I think it's it's decently made. Mark Malloy is a commercial director. He's done a couple Apple things. Kind of wild that I guess he was tapped for this because I think the action at times is kind of clear. The helicopter stuff is cool. Some of the chases are kind of fun, but they're not. I guess they're better than what you see in some like Netflix shows and Netflix movies, but not by much. It just feels competent. It feels like, yeah, you actually frame the action well, and you're doing something interesting with real cars being hit and real things exploding. But it's kind of like bare minimum. I almost feel like there is room. You're coming back to Beverly Hills Cop. There's something to do, maybe a little more with the relationship with the daughter. I think they tried to do something here, but it feels still very safe. Um, the Joseph Gordon-Levitt character, that is a role where you put the right person in there and then you can have magic, right? Because I think the other thing about Beverly Hills Cop is that is such a it's such a like it's such like a miracle of a mixture of things, right? Eddie Murphy wasn't the first choice for that. That was going to be a Stallone movie. It was going to be like a hardcore super violent movie, but it's Eddie Murphy's charisma and his energy that really changed what that movie was, and that's what we remember. And we kind of need somebody on that level, or at least somebody to have that sort of rapport, but that's just not what he's into. He wants to do Beverly Hills Cop. So he's going to do Beverly Hills Cop again, and he does it. But I imagine like, even if that character was like played by Io Edebiri or even a Donald Glover or something, or somebody different, Mulaney in a cop buddy movie, something. Give me something different, something interesting, push it forward somehow. When you bring up Force Awakens, Jeff, this is the only reason I push back there, because yes, it does go over the same basic plot points as the first Star Wars, but you know what it does? It kills off major characters. It builds new characters who are doing interesting things, and at least I think, which paid off more in The Last Jedi, but it created new characters where you are interested in seeing their journey because they're different and they're adding a little something different to Star Wars. There's none of that here. You got Joseph Gordon-Levitt, love him. He is a perfectly likable cop guy. That's it. There's nothing interesting.
Yeah.
I like Taylor. I like the actor who played Taylor Page, who plays his daughter. I think she's great. She has a lot of charisma, but again, it's like very typical daddy daughter stuff. What if she were a cop now, but also trying to be by the book? I don't know. There's just ways this movie could have gone that would have been a little different, and it just feels like it tried to be safe at every turn. But go ahead, Jeff.
I'm sorry. I just, it made me think too, is why always, it seems, when we return to these characters that we love, that were the heroes of their stories 30 years later, they're always deadbeat dads. Why is that the case? Why are they always complete fuck-ups when it comes to being a parent?
Well,
it's like,
I think we all know the reason is
to create
dramatic tension of will this guy actually become a good dad during the course of this movie? Because if he was a great dad, no dramatic tension.
But it's such a played out trope at this point. It just feels like hey, remember how great that character was? Guess what? In the intervening 30 years, they've been a complete shitball. It's like,
also, I almost wonder how much of this comes from a lot of these actors and kind of how they feel too. Like there's a whole thing about the 80s about dads being too worried that they were working too much and not spending enough time with their kids. And that all stemmed from studio executives and directors who were doing that same thing, right? It was their own guilt about their lives. Yeah.
Eddie Murphy has like 1,000 kids and he
loves the kids.
All about being a dad right now.
He loves being a dad.
It doesn't track for him, but
it doesn't track for him. Yeah, you're right. Again, it does not feel real. So what would have felt real for him?
I really don't like the dynamic of the show where basically I am left to harshly critically acclaim things like The Bear, and then I need to come on here and defend middling things like Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F.
I said it was competently made. What else do you want?
Here I also said I got some joy out of it.
I think I liked it more than any of you. Because in my opinion, this is close to the best case scenario of what this movie could have been, right? I mean, best case scenario is, yes, could have completely redone the whole dynamic and, introduced new memorable characters. Yes, that would have been nice, but like,
or at least what Adil and Bilal did with Bad Boys.
Most of the time that doesn't happen. Most of the time we just get a retread of stuff we've already seen before.
It's true.
And to its credit, to Axel F's credit, first of all, Eddie Murphy's still very charming, looks great for his age. He's in his 60s. Can still do a lot of this stuff, crack a lot of the same jokes. I got a chuckle out of many of the moments, and the action in this movie is actually good for the most part. Like, there's an opening chase sequence, doesn't quite measure up to the first film, but it's still quite good. There's a helicopter thing. There's other chase sequences.
The helicopter thing is a lot of fun. Yeah. Street level helicopters will always get me.
Right. There's other things that are actually they actually went out and did this. I'm going to actually argue, I think this movie would have done decently if it actually was released in theaters.
I agree.
Right? If it was released in theaters this summer, this would have been you can imagine people wanting to relive their younger years from this 40-year-old movie coming out and seeing Beverly Hills Cop Axel F in theaters.
Look at how Bad Boys did in theaters.
Right. Look at how Bad Boys did. I love the meta humor of this movie, when you think about it, it is a little weird that this guy keeps occasionally getting into adventures in Beverly Hills, right?
And it's always a rich guy who has a compound of armed militia. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I thought I had a great time with this movie. This movie does not ask very much from you. It's just hey, just watch. We're going to have some fun. We're going to have some laughs. And it really just delivers on those things.
It's a real turn your brain off movie.
Yeah. And the action is good. There's a couple fun moments.
It could be worse. Yeah.
We can talk about it in spoilers. But I thought hey, I've seen a lot of hate for Axel F on the internet. And people being like, this movie's terrible. It doesn't capture the magic of the original at all. I don't know that I disagree, but it's
Do you remember Beverly Hills Cop 3 is all I have to say.
It's perfectly fine. It is. If you have your expectations set correctly, this is great.
That's
this movie
the difference.
Is great.
Honestly, you and I are describing the same thing, Dave.
Yes.
Your expectations were lower than mine.
Yeah.
And I think that's 100% what it is. Is you're like, this is the best case scenario of what we could have hoped for. And I went, this is kind of sad because I was hoping for better. That's the only difference between our reviews. I think I also, like I said,
my feeling, my attitude is so deathly cynical on the movie industry right now that I thought Axel F was actually good. But anyway, go ahead, Jeff.
I had some fun. There are worse ways to spend 2 hours of your time, especially if you're a fan of Eddie Murphy and the first movie. Yeah. But I don't know. It's also you go through the whole effort of getting everybody together.
Yeah.
Can we do something a little bit more ambitious than this?
Just a little more. Yeah. Who's the new Eddie Murphy? Who is what can we do? We got a good stew cooking. How do we make it? How do we make it a little spicier? Something.
All right. Let's talk about spoilers. Let's get to spoilers.
Real quick. I just want to say before we get to spoilers, I'm not joking when I say they damn well better do a Bad Boys Beverly Hills Cop crossover. They better do it. It should go. Imagine how much money that would make in theater. That would solve peace on earth because of that movie. Eddie Murphy, Will Smith, everybody in the movie. I think it would be a blast. Yeah.
I'll also say this before we get to spoilers. Here's another thing we got. Lorne Balfe doing a take on the classic Beverly Hills Cop theme song. It's
just like he did for Bad Boys.
For those who don't know, Lorne Balfe, in my opinion, one of the most talented composers alive right now. He did one of my favorite scores from him is Mission Impossible Fallout. That was incredible. He also, I think he worked on the new Top Gun Maverick as well. But anyway, super
And
talented.
not the only song that is brought back.
Yes, yes,
You know, it's
true,
like
true.
the entire
In fact,
first
bring
part
back
of
all
the
the
movie
songs.
Yeah.
is just like, oh, this is a remix of the first movie in every possible way.
Yeah.
I think those were perhaps the weakest choices of actually having literally all
Yeah.
the songs from the beginning of the first movie right in the beginning of this one.
And it starts exactly the same way with
Mhm.
like B-roll, him driving through town, B-roll of actual real people. It's
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to spoilers for Beverly Hills Cop Axel F starting right now. I mean, you're talking about Bad Boys and Beverly Hills Cop, but what you haven't mentioned
Mhm.
is the fact that this movie heavily implies that Beverly Hills Cop takes place in the same cinematic universe as Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
Yes!
Which
Yes!
is a major
I couldn't
earth-shattering
believe
piece
that.
of news.
Amazing.
Amazing. I for a moment I really thought that Adam Sandler was going to walk out.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Scooter McGavin himself.
I
Yeah.
couldn't believe
I
it. I was
clapped.
like,
Shooter
what is
McGavin-
happening right
Yeah,
now?
Shooter.
To be fair, he is only credited as golfer in the credits.
Right.
And also, there is a sequel to Happy Gilmore actually in the works.
Yes.
So we're going to see. Is it Shoot? I think it's Shooter McGavin, right? Shooter. Yeah.
I
So we're
I
going to
think
see
Shooter's right.
Shooter McGavin actually return in that movie, presumably.
Now you just gave me an idea though. The Sandler and Murphy, Beverly Hills. Come on.
Well,
Come
honestly,
on.
Devindra, I do think if I'm tasked with making the Lego sequel to Beverly Hills Cop,
Mhm.
I do think the fun thing is Axel Foley forced to reckon with a young Axel Foley.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
you get into these wonderful scenes where one of them starts a bullshit line and the other one starts a bullshit line that doesn't line up, and they're forced to like do the improv thing where you're trying to reckon with the two different scenes. That, you know, one of them goes in the front entrance to the bad guy lair and starts bullshitting about a thing. The other one goes in the back entrance, starts bullshitting, and then they are confronted and their stories don't line up, and you see the back and forth of the bullshit trying to like that would be so fun.
So many fun things we could be doing, Jeff. We could be having so much fun with this franchise.
Okay.
Instead, we get Judge Reinhold going, I was going to crack this thing wide open.
All right,
that was the moment I just put my head in my hands and went, oh, no.
I'm going to say that my favorite scene from the movie was when Eddie Murphy puts a chair on top of the table in the interrogation room.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
And then Kevin Bacon comes in and pokes it, and he grabs a chair and like rips it off and
But
knocks
where
Kevin
was
Bacon
he
out.
under the table?
Yeah,
I was trying to figure out the blocking of that scene.
Unclear.
Okay.
Unclear.
If he's under the table.
No.
Kevin Bacon sees
I think he's off frame. He's off frame. So he's like behind the door.
He's hiding.
It's a small room.
Yeah.
He's hiding
The
in the
door
corner.
opens outside.
This is a thing that's actually really cool where like in movies in general, it's like
yes.
the whole universe takes place inside the frame, right? So like oftentimes it's like, oh, if you were actually in that character's perspective, you would see them. But like for the viewer, the universe is in the frame. And so he was slightly off camera in the
Therefore,
corner.
Kevin Bacon can't see him.
Yeah, that's right. So that was funny.
But it was a cool idea.
It's a cool idea.
And then him saying you've seen too many movies was pretty great. Too.
Yes,
like
I agree.
that was very funny.
Yeah.
Like there's a couple of flashes of his brilliance, and I like let's do the one thing I was just very glad because I was certain it was going to happen. I was like, at some point he's putting a fucking banana in a fucking tailpipe.
Yeah, I was surprised
and
it didn't happen.
At least they showed restraint on that respect.
Yeah.
I mean, they showed restraint on the.
He would go to try to do it, and then it's an EV, you know. And,
right?
Yeah.
Oh my
God! There you go. Yes. That's a good joke.
That's exactly what I could have imagined.
You know what? Jeff Kanata made a very astute remark on our After Dark where
a broken clock is right twice a day.
Once every like 18 weeks or so, he'll say something smart. And on the After Dark, he was saying how like back in the 80s, like places used to have a much bigger sense of primacy in our society. Like Beverly Hills was like a place that had a specific character, and that's still true. But like the internet has made everything so like anyone can live anywhere, and any place can have any characteristics. Or if you see a 30-second clip from one place, it can feel like a 30-second clip from another place. The idea of places having specific character is kind of not as important these days. So the idea of like Beverly Hills Cop, like when basically when you read the title of the original, I think whenever I see the title, the way I read it is Beverly Hills Cop. that's how I read it. I think that's the way they want you to read it. Is like
anyone wants you to read it that
Beverly
way.
Hills Cop.
I don't think anyone has ever wanted anyone to read it that way.
I disagree with you. I disagree. I think when you see that title, they want you to say Beverly Hills Cop. Anyway, so I'm going to say I actually think this movie does a better job of conveying the feel of Beverly Hills than the original Beverly Hills Cop.
I don't know about that. What?
I mean, it does it in the exact same way.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, I know, but it's more vivid.
It's only
movie.
more vivid because our brains have been like incepted by the LED backdrops from all the Star Wars movies and the Marvel movies. Like we have forgotten what actual sets and physical places.
All right, it is comparable. Like. It is comparable. I'll say that.
I mean, the fact that they seem to have shot this on actual like Wilshire and Doheny.
Yes.
I don't know how the hell they pulled that off, but that could not have been cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I would say it's comparable. It's comparable in terms of like bringing the place. Beverly Hills Cop
in terms of they brought the cameras to the streets of Beverly Hills. It is that comparable, yes.
But it does the exact same thing. Like it has him driving down the street, like noticing odd. Wasn't that weird? Look at a lady with a dog with clothes on. Look, there's an automated delivery robot. It's like all this. It's like just literally updating.
How times have
scene.
Changed. Yeah.
Extremely random note, by the way, Jeff. Since your opening statement about this film was a treatise about aging, people pointed out recently that John Ashton was the guy who plays the Taggart.
Yeah,
was 36 years old when Beverly Hills Cop 1 came out.
Yes.
Which is pretty shocking. It's like, oh wow, that guy was always that age.
Good for him. Good for him.
He
what?
Go ahead.
I question his choice of dyeing the hair and beard for this movie. The dye job, not great in my opinion, but every other thing, I'm just glad to see him going hard. He's not a small part of this movie. If he was, there's a universe where he wouldn't have been able to hold up under the rigors of what was required of him, and they would have just had him be a tiny part of this movie. But no, he's a big part of this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Paul Reiser even, doing a couple of days work.
A couple of days work, yes.
I'll also say there was one part of the movie that was actually kind of poignant, which was when his daughter, Jane Saunders brings up like, hey, yes, you were a new dad and I was a new daughter, but you're still the parent.
Yeah. The parent is always the parent.
The parent is always the parent. And I like that. That's like
that's good.
A way of he's trying to avoid responsibility, and she points out like, "Hey, the parent is still the parent." Of course,
good therapy speaking there. Yeah,
their entire relationship took place off screen. Like I was like, did I miss that he had a daughter in Beverly Hills Cop 3? Like, no, I don't think she is in that at all. Like
we have no idea who his wife or
the entire relationship took place off screen. So kind of odd decision there. But anyway, all right. Any other thoughts on Axel F, guys?
I would recommend. Just go listen to that Eddie Murphy interview. Just go listen. Be like, an interview with Eddie Murphy. Surely it would deliver some insights into his life and the way he's working and thinking now, his hopes and dreams. And you don't quite get that. Well, I get it.
I have not seen that interview, but I did see his Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee from a couple years ago. And I thought it was delightful. Yes, you definitely get the same vibe that he's just like coasting his way through retirement.
He's
but
done.
Like, you know what? Good for you, Eddie Murphy.
But the difference there is that there was a camera, right? And he's somebody who gets turned on when there is a camera on him. He knows how to be his thing. So when it's just him chilling on audio, it's just like, oh man, you're just chilling. You're doing this because hey, this franchise is here and you're doing it. And I would love to see him. Like,
you're saying I can pay for every one of my kids' college using the salary from this one?
I
Exactly.
don't think he's worried about that right now. But the thing that this movie made me think is I'm worried about Beetlejuice 2. I was so excited about the second Beetlejuice, and now I'm like, these are the level of difficulty of pulling off the Lego sequel finally dawned on me. It's not easy. There's so few of them that are worthwhile, and it's such a bummer. I mean, just go down the litany of. I mean, I know Devindra, you loved Matrix Revolutions, but Resurrections, excuse me. But like, there's so few of them that, for my money, like, were worth doing. So few of them. You know, the bringing back Linda Hamilton in Terminator, I thought was going to be amazing. Nope. I didn't love the Blade Runner. I know a lot of people do. I didn't.
I don't know, Jeff. I thought Blade Runner 2049 was pretty good, but it sounds like you didn't like that very much, right?
It's rare.
You know, a lot. I recognize that I'm in the distinct minority on that one. Most people love that movie. I didn't love it. I remember liking the Bill and Ted Legacy sequel, but again,
that was good.
And some people put Dr. Sleep in that category.
Yep.
Which we all loved.
Yeah, but but some people generally hate that movie. So yeah,
one of the best Legacy sequels, honestly, J.J. Abrams' Star Trek. I thought that was very good. You know,
well, I would call that a reboot, because Legacy sequel to me means like we got some of the original actors back.
They did get the original actors back, Jeff.
They what?
Leonard Nimoy was in
Leonard
Star Trek?
Nimoy.
Oh yeah, Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
Does that count though? I guess
I think it counts. I think it counts. Yeah. So that's a good one as well. All right. Anyway, but I would agree with you, Jeff, that very often it doesn't feel like the juice is worth the squeeze on these.
It's a tough needle to thread. How about that? Like you gotta, because it seems easy, but then it feels lazy if you just do what's obvious. I think that's the problem.
I think the problem is we want the characters as we remember them, not as old people.
Yes.
And it's a bummer. I mean, Halloween with Jamie Lee Curtis, like, there's kind of a fun thing about old lady fighting scary masked man, but like,
but then if you give people the characters you love as you don't remember them, then there's a mass fan uprising, as what happened with The Last Jedi. So it's like, oh, Luke Skywalker would never do this. Oh,
right. Yeah.
There's no winning. There's no winning other than make it try.
Other than don't play the game.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that I get excited about these, and it's like, fool me 15 times, shame on.
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing. Like, Jeff, how are you still getting excited for them? That's my question. Because like I'm fully aware of the hell we live in,
This is the one though. This is the straw that broke the camel's back for me.
This is the one?
Like I came out being sad.
This is the one where Jeff felt like he was staring into the abyss.
Yeah.
while watching Axel F.
Which is weird because I did get some joy out of this movie. But the I was you heard me at the end of last year when we talked about our most anticipated movies of 2025. It's what year are we even in?
We're in 2024 right now.
Yeah, it's coming out this year, right? The Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
I was so excited about that, and now I'm like, I don't know.
I just like my thing there is I don't know if Tim Burton remembers how to tell stories. Like that's it. Like his own like narrative. Like I don't know, feelings now feel off to me.
Well, anyway, at the end of the day,
Chelsea,
it is impressive that Mark Malloy made a movie. Thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.